They said I felt too much, that I cried at the wrong times, that my joy was embarrassing, that my silence was even worse. They said I made everything about me when all I ever did was try to feel what no one else dared to. They whispered behind my back, "She's so emotional. Always taking things personally. She's exhausting." They told everyone I gave up, that I wasted potential, that I had a nervous breakdown, that I was fragile. But I didn't collapse. I unraveled. And in the threads of my unspooling, I found a kind of freedom they couldn't understand. They rewrote my story before I even had a chance to live it. They turned my emotions into excuses, my softness into shame. But it wasn't failure. It was something bigger, just not visible yet. They looked away when I cried. They laughed when I tried to explain the world the way I saw it. They mocked my metaphors, my letters, my voice. But that voice, it stayed with me, quiet, persistent, waiting for the moment someone might listen. It was never about being seen. It was about being understood. Because there is a difference. The ones who called me too sensitive never cared to know what I was sensing. The temperature of a room, the sorrow behind a smile, the longing in someone's laugh. I felt it all. And I carried it like glass in my palms, carefully, painfully, lovingly. I learned to walk around their indifference like it was a minefield, to anticipate judgment before it fell from their lips, to apologize for my tears before they had a chance to roll down my face. And yet I kept feeling, because the only thing worse than being called too sensitive was becoming numb. Sometimes I wondered if I was broken, if maybe they were right, if maybe I should have been born someone else, someone easier to digest. But I wasn't born to be easy. I was born to see the world with my entire soul. And that came at a cost. Let me take you back. Before the award, before the letter, before the night, everything changed. Before anyone cared to know my name. My name is Layla Carter. I'm 32 years old. And I live in Boulder, Colorado. This is the story they never expected me to tell. The one they thought would stay buried in my journals and deleted drafts. But it didn't. Because something happened. Someone noticed. And when they did, everything they mocked me for became the very thing they honored. Not because I shouted. Not because I proved anything. But because truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. And mine had waited long enough. When I was younger, I thought the world made room for people like me. I thought if I loved hard enough, tried hard enough, stayed kind enough, I'd be okay. That the world would meet me halfway. But the world wasn't built for tenderness. Not the one I knew. I was born into a family of achievers. Doctors, engineers, analysts, problem solvers. People who respected facts more than feelings. People who believed logic was the highest form of intelligence. In that world, emotion was something to be managed. Not expressed. Certainly not celebrated. My dad was a cardiac surgeon. My mom ran her own financial advisory firm. My brother, Noah, had a 4.0 GPA from MIT by the time he was 22. He built things. He got things done. He never flinched when people yelled. Never blinked when people cried. And then there was me, the artsy one. The child who scribbled poetry in the margins of math homework. Who asked why too many times. Who cried at Disney movies and couldn't sleep if someone in the house was upset. They didn't know what to do with me. They tried in their own way. They signed me up for piano, ballet, debate. But every time I cried after a bad rehearsal or wrote a short story instead of prepping for a test, they'd frown like I was speaking another language. At first, I tried to belong. I followed the script. High school honor roll. Pre-med in college. I even shadowed my dad at the hospital for a summer. I remember the first time I saw a patient cry in front of him. It was a woman, early 50s, recent bypass surgery. She grabbed my dad's hand and said, "Thank you for saving my life." Her voice cracked. Her eyes welled up. She reached for connection. And my dad? He smiled, professional and brief. "Just doing my job," he said, then moved on to the next chart. I stood frozen. How could he not see her? How could he not feel what she was offering? Later, in the car, I asked him, Didn't that moment mean something to you? He didn't even glance at me. She's alive. That's what matters. That summer broke something in me. Not because I saw pain, but because I saw how easily it was ignored. I returned to college and changed my major. Creative writing. It felt like coming home to a language I'd forgotten I was fluent in. Of course, my family didn't see it that way. My mom said nothing for 3 days after I told her. My dad finally said, "Writing's a nice hobby, Layla, but hobbies don't pay bills." And my brother? He just laughed. Figures. You always liked playing make-believe. That was the start of my fall. Not because I changed my major, but because I stopped trying to hide who I really was. I began publishing short stories in small online journals. They were raw, emotional. Too emotional, according to most editors. But a few saw something in them. Not enough to pay rent, but enough to keep me breathing. I graduated with honors and 0 job prospects. Moved back home. Spent months pretending to look for real work. Instead, I wrote. I poured my heart into pages no one would read. And when I did get a job, admin work at a local nonprofit, I was grateful. It gave me just enough structure to not feel like a total failure. But still, the whispers. From relatives. From neighbors. From family friends. She's just taking a break. Still finding herself. We don't talk about that anymore. I became the elephant in every room. And then, like some cruel punchline, I started having panic attacks. Not loud, dramatic ones. Quiet ones. The kind where the world blurs and your hands forget how to move. Where you're in a room full of people and still feel like you're screaming into a void. I tried to explain. Once. I'm not okay. I told my mother one night. Her response? You just need to get out of the house more. You think too much. That's your problem. So I stopped trying to explain. And I stopped talking. Not completely. Just in the ways that mattered. I shrunk myself down to fit the mold again. Yes, I'm doing better. Yes, I'm looking for more stable work. Yes, I'm dating someone. That was a lie. But something inside me refused to die. Even when everything else told me I should give up. I didn't. I started over. Quietly. Not with a loud rebrand or a viral post. But in the smallest of ways. A new notebook. A second-hand laptop. And a story I couldn't stop thinking about. No one noticed. No one asked. No one cared. But for the first time in years, that didn't stop me. It started with a community flyer. It was taped to the inside of a dusty bus shelter on Pearl Street. A plain white sheet with uneven lettering and a crooked staple. Looking for volunteers to teach digital skills to seniors. No experience needed. Just patience. I don't know why I stopped to read it. Maybe because it looked like it was made by someone who didn't know how to center text in Word. Maybe because I had nowhere urgent to be. Or maybe because deep down, I was desperate to feel useful again. That flyer stayed in my pocket all the way home. Crumpled, half-torn, forgotten in my coat for 2 days. Then on a rainy Tuesday, I called the number. A woman named Margaret answered. Her voice had a warmth I hadn't heard in a long time. We meet Thursdays at the library, she said. Come if you feel like it. No pressure. So I did. That first day, the library smelled like old carpet and lemon wipes. 4 seniors sat at the back table, each with a confused look and a laptop that might as well have been a spaceship. No one asked about my resume. No one cared what I majored in. They just handed me a folding chair and said, "See if you can help Mr. Salvatore open his email." He looked at me like I was sent from heaven. "This thing hates me," he muttered, tapping the keyboard like it owed him money. I smiled. "Well, let's convince it to like you." It took us 45 minutes to find the compose button. Another 15 to figure out how to attach a photo. But when we finally sent that email to his daughter in Oregon, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled like he'd just climbed Everest. "She's gonna flip," he said. "I haven't sent her a picture in years." He reached into his wallet and showed me a faded photo of a baby. She's 5 now. But this one was her first Halloween. Dressed like a ladybug. I didn't say much. Just nodded. But something heavy and warm settled into my chest. It didn't make headlines, but it mattered. I kept coming back every Thursday. 1 week turned into 4. Then 4 turned into a routine. I'd write in the mornings, show up at the library by 2, and spend my afternoons explaining things like, what is the cloud? And why does my screen keep disappearing? It was unglamorous work. Slow, repetitive. Sometimes frustrating. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt human. There was a woman named Irene who always wore red lipstick, even on snow days. She'd call me Honey Bun and say things like, I was married for 42 years and never once learned how to send a text.
Can you believe that?
She used to bring handwritten love notes her husband gave her before he passed. I helped her digitize them, scan them into folders. She wanted to make a digital scrapbook for her granddaughter. This one's my favorite, she told me, holding up a wrinkled piece of paper with fading ink. You're not difficult. You're just deeper than the rest. Thank you for loving the way you do. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak for a moment. And she smiled at me like she knew, like she saw through the quiet, through the mask I still wore. You remind me of me, she said. Always feeling too much. But don't stop. The world's already full of people who feel too little. I went home that night and wrote for 6 hours straight. The story poured out of me. It wasn't polished. It wasn't clever. But it was true. It was about a woman who taught herself to be invisible and the strangers who helped her remember she was still there. I didn't know what to do with it. So I just saved it to a folder titled, Maybe Someday. But something had shifted. I started waking up before my alarm.
Started eating again.
Started laughing at bad TV and replying to texts I used to ignore. Not everything was fixed. I still had nights where the world felt too loud. Still had to explain to people that, yes, this was my real job now. Still heard my mom's voice in my head asking, so, what do you do all day? Just sit at a computer and help old people open Facebook? But I didn't mind as much, because I saw what it meant.
To them. To me.
I wasn't saving lives. I wasn't building empires. But I was helping Irene hold her memories. Helping Mr. Salvatore see his granddaughter grow up. And slowly, I was rebuilding a version of myself that I actually liked. One that wasn't trying so hard to be impressive. One that didn't shrink when people rolled their eyes. One that could cry in front of strangers without apologizing. Somewhere in the quiet of those library afternoons, I found a kind of peace I didn't know I needed. And I started writing again. Not for recognition. Not for validation. Just because I could not write. It didn't pay. Didn't trend. Didn't win any awards.
But it healed me.
By the time summer rolled around, our little library group had outgrown the back table. We moved to the community center, more chairs, better Wi-Fi, and a whiteboard that squeaked every time I wrote on it. We called ourselves Clickwise. It started as a joke. Mr. Salvatore said, "You've made us wise about clicking things," and the name stuck. I made a logo using Canva. Irene brought cupcakes the day we reached 20 regulars. Margaret filed the paperwork to register us as a nonprofit. It felt small, and yet sacred. Every Thursday, more people showed up. Some came with flip phones older than me. Others had tablets gifted by grandkids, but didn't know how to unlock the screens. We welcomed everyone. I taught them how to FaceTime, send voice notes, unsubscribe from spam emails. We laughed about autocorrect fails and cried over reconnected family threads. By October, we were onboarding 1,200 seniors per month. We created step-by-step printouts, translated into 4 languages. We held workshops at churches, mosques, and retirement homes. Even partnered with a local tech company to donate refurbished laptops. Someone from the city council called it a vital bridge between generations. We got featured in the community newsletter, page 7 beneath a bake sale ad, but to me, it felt like the front page of the New York Times. I still had my day job at the nonprofit, but Clickwise was becoming its own heartbeat. I hired 2 part-time helpers using a small grant we won. Started building a basic website. Designed a weekly email digest with tech tips and video tutorials. We had a 78% email open rate. That's higher than some Fortune 500 companies. I didn't brag. Didn't post inspirational quotes on LinkedIn. I just kept showing up, week after week. But at home, nothing had changed. My mom still asked when I was going to apply for real jobs. My dad didn't even know what ClickWise was. And Noah sent me an article once titled, "The Danger of Delaying Ambition." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand on the kitchen table and shout, "Do you know what I've built? Do you know how many people I've helped?" But I didn't, because I knew they wouldn't hear it the way I meant it. To them, teaching old folks to click buttons was noble, yes, but not serious. Not measurable. Not worthy. She's always been the free spirit, my aunt would say at family dinners, as if that were some chronic condition I refused to treat. And when my cousin got promoted at a tech firm, they threw a party. Champagne, speeches, a custom cake with the company logo on it. When I shared that ClickWise had trained over 10,000 seniors in 6 months, my mom blinked and said, "That's nice, honey. Maybe you could add that to your resume." My resume. As if this wasn't the real thing. As if building something from scratch without a budget, a blueprint, was just filler. It hurt, but not in the way it used to. Because while they saw a side project, I saw something else. I saw Irene hosting her first virtual book club, Mr. Salvatore helping his neighbor set up online banking, a couple in their 70s renewing their wedding vows via Zoom because now they knew how. And I saw the stories I was writing begin to shift. No longer about pain and isolation. Now, they had roots.
Light.
They had hope. One of them, a short piece titled "The Glass Screen," got accepted into a small but respected literary journal. The editor's email said, "It's rare to read something so gentle, yet so powerful." That sentence sat in my inbox like a love letter. Proof that my softness wasn't a flaw, it was a strength. I printed it and tucked it into a drawer. Didn't tell anyone. Because part of me was still afraid. Afraid to hope. Afraid that, once again, it wouldn't matter. But another part of me was growing louder. The part that no longer needed to explain my worth. The part that knew, deep down, that recognition wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was silent, like an old man smiling at an email from his granddaughter. And sometimes, recognition walked through the door when you least expected it. It happened on a Tuesday, not even a Thursday, which would have made more sense. Not a graduation, not an award ceremony, just a regular weekday where the sky was heavy and gray. I was at the coffee shop on Main and Maple, sitting by the window with my laptop and a half-eaten croissant. ClickWise had just passed 15,000 total participants. I'd sent out our milestone email, scheduled a few social media posts, and was reviewing a new onboarding script when I overheard the voice behind me. "Have you heard of ClickWise?" I froze. Not in a proud, "this is my moment" way, but in the way your heart skips when someone says your name and they don't know you're listening. "My fiancé's grandmother couldn't even use a microwave app," the voice continued. "Now she's FaceTiming us every Sunday like a pro. It's wild." I turned my head slightly, just enough to see them reflected in the glass. 2 women, mid-30s. One in a navy blazer, the other in workout clothes and a messy bun. The one in the blazer spoke again. "It's not just the tech. It's the dignity." They didn't talk down to her. She felt seen. Her voice cracked slightly on that last word. I stared at the condensation forming on my coffee cup. They were talking about us. About me. I stayed still, not wanting to ruin the moment. The woman in the blazer kept going. "I don't know who started it, but God bless them. It changed everything for Nana. And honestly, it helped me too." She laughed. "Because now I get to hear her stories. Her actual stories. She showed us her wedding dress last week. On video. I didn't even know she had one." She took a sip of her tea. "If I ever meet whoever's behind it, I'm hugging them." I didn't move. Not yet. I just listened. My laptop was still open, the ClickWise dashboard blinking softly, waiting for input. The woman in the workout clothes asked, "Wait, what's it called again?" "Click help." "ClickWise," the blazer corrected. Like wise as in wisdom. WISE. and something inside me broke open. Not in a dramatic fall on the floor kind of way.
It was quieter than that.
A soft crack. The kind that lets in light. I stood up slowly, walked over to their table. I didn't even know what I was going to say until the words left my mouth. "Hi," I said gently. "Sorry, I couldn't help overhearing." They both looked up, surprised but not annoyed. I'm Olivia," I said. "Olivia Grant." I started clickwise. For a second, no one spoke. Then the woman in the blazer blinked, like she couldn't quite process it. "You wait, what?" "I'm the founder," I said, smiling. "Well, co-founder now."
But yeah.
It was just me in the beginning. She stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped. "Oh my God. You're serious?" "Completely," I said. "That email about your grandma? We probably sent that." Her eyes welled instantly. She looked down, trying to gather herself. "You have no idea," she whispered. "You have no idea what this meant to our family." And then, just like she promised, she hugged me.
Tight.
Not awkward. Not polite. But real. Like someone hugging a person who unknowingly helped stitch their life back together.
I didn't cry.
I smiled. Sank into the moment.
Let it hold me.
The woman in workout clothes laughed through her tears. "You're like a superhero," she said. I shook my head. I just wanted people to feel like they mattered. They both sat back down, and we ended up talking for 20 minutes. They told me Nana's full story, her grief after losing her husband, how isolated she'd become, how Clickwise gave her something to wake up for, how her daughter cried the first time they got a group video call right. It was surreal, because for years I had written stories about impact, about transformation. But now, I was hearing my own story told back to me, through the voice of someone I'd never met. "You didn't just teach tech," the woman in the blazer said finally. "You taught connection." I walked home that day in the drizzle, holding my laptop tight against my chest. Not because I feared it would get wet, but because it suddenly felt sacred. I didn't tell my family. Not right away. I let the moment live in my chest for a while, just for me. Because for once, I wasn't chasing approval. I wasn't hoping to be recognized. The truth had walked in by itself. And it refused to stay quiet. A week passed before I printed the article. The one from the literary journal. The one that called my writing gentle, yet powerful. I didn't frame it. Didn't post it. Didn't bring it to family dinner. I just folded it quietly and slid it into my journal. The leather one with the worn corners and the smell of pine. And then I wrote beneath it. They called me too sensitive. But sensitivity taught me to listen. And listening made me visible. It wasn't pride. It was peace. Everything began to shift in small, almost imperceptible ways after that. It started with a message from my mom. No long phone call. No dramatic confession. Just a photo of my dad, brows furrowed, glasses low on his nose, reading one of our Clickwise handouts. She captioned it. "Your father says you finally made something he understands." I smiled. Not because it was everything, but because it was something. A crack in the wall. A doorway, maybe. Then a week later, my brother Noah emailed me. Not a joke. Not a passive-aggressive article link. An actual email. Subject line. "I was wrong." He wrote, "Liv, I've been thinking a lot about what you've built. And how I didn't take it seriously. I'm sorry. I saw what Clickwise is doing in a Reddit thread.
People are actually talking about you.
And praising it. I'm proud of you. I should have said that a long time ago." He ended it with, "P.S. Nana says hi. She's teaching Grandpa how to use Spotify." I didn't reply right away. Not out of spite. I just read it twice. Then again. Let it echo. Let it take up space in the part of my heart that used to stay closed. Later, I replied with 2 words. "Thank you." Because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not to Noah. Not to my parents. Not even to myself. I had found a rhythm now. A quietness that didn't ask for applause. Some days I still felt invisible. But I knew, deep in my bones, that visibility had never been the goal. Connection was. And I had that. Not just through Clickwise, but through the lives we touched. The seniors who laughed and stumbled and kept coming back. The volunteers who made flyers and coffee and friendship bracelets. The girl in the cafe who said I was a superhero. All of it mattered. I didn't need viral fame or a blue checkmark or to be discovered. I just needed to keep doing the work, keep telling stories, keep holding space for softness in a world that often bulldozed it. One afternoon, months later, my mom came to one of our workshops. She didn't say much, just sat in the back with her purse on her lap. Watched as Irene explained how to use a QR code. Watched as Mr. Salvatore helped a woman recover her Facebook password. Watched me, her daughter, float from person to person, smiling, fixing, translating tech into something that felt human. And at the end, she walked up to me.
Didn't hug me. Didn't cry. Just said,
"It's beautiful what you've made here." That was all. But for me, it was enough. It didn't erase the years of doubt. It didn't rewrite history. But it gave it a new ending. A softer one. And maybe that's what healing looks like. Not perfection, not resolution. Just room. Room for people to grow. Room for me to stay soft without apology. Room for a new version of myself. One that didn't flinch when called sensitive. One that wore it like a crown. If you've ever been called too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too soft, too slow, too different, this story was for you. Because I know what it feels like to sit in a room full of people and wonder if your voice matters. To spend years undoing the damage of words spoken casually. She's delicate. She's not tough enough. She won't last. I've lived through being overlooked, talked over, dismissed with a smile and a pat on the head. But listen closely. You don't need permission to bloom. Your softness is not a weakness. Your story doesn't need anyone's validation to be real. And your journey, however quiet, however slow, is still worthy of the loudest celebration. You don't have to wait for a stranger in a coffee shop to name your value. You don't need an award, or a headline, or a post to go viral. If your work touches even one soul, if your heart opens even one locked door, if your voice makes even one person feel less alone, you've done something holy. You've made ripples that matter. I didn't know, years ago, that my words would ever land anywhere. I didn't know they'd win something. I didn't even know if they were worth reading. But I kept writing anyway.
kept building.
Kept showing up, quietly, stubbornly, gently. And now I know. It was never about being loud. It was about being true. So tell me, where are you watching this from? What's your story? Have you been the quiet one in the room, doubted and dismissed? Have you been waiting for your moment to matter? Share it in the comments. Let this space be a soft landing for all the stories no one clapped for. Because someone out there, someone just like you, is still waiting to hear a story that sounds like their own. And maybe your story is the one that changes everything for them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that quiet voices are still worth hearing. More stories are coming. Until then, stay soft, stay strong. And remember, they may have called you too sensitive, but someday, the world will call you brilliant.